Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome here for what is my third delivery during the month of Ramadan. And we are covering some, I would say, some reflections of some of the rules and regulations of Ramadan, why we have Ramadan. So, to begin, as Allah mentioned in the Quran, that He has كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. It has been ordained upon you to fast, as-siyam. كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Just like it has been ordained for those before you, other people before you, other nations before you have been given the same obligations, the same thing. And it concludes by saying لعلكم تتقون. So hopefully, maybe you will have and attain taqwa. And this is Allah clarifying clearly what is the purpose behind fasting Ramadan. It is to attain taqwa. Now, what does it mean to attain taqwa? Now, the reason why it's important to highlight this is that sometimes when we think of fasting, we look at the surface action of fasting. We say, okay, look, I'm hungry. I'm not eating for a certain period of time. People say, oh, this is my way to understand and empathize with those who don't have food, those who don't have the ability to feed themselves and their own family. So we are emulating, you could say, starvation, so that we can understand what they don't have. And I guess appreciate what we do have. And no doubt that would be one of the many blessings or wisdom, hikmah, behind fasting. Just like you could say that there's wisdom for a lot of things. But that isn't what was said stipulated specifically in the Quran. What was said specifically in the Quran is that you may attain taqwa. So question is, what is taqwa? Taqwa comes from the word waqa yaqi wiqaya. And wiqaya means like a shield. It means to block you from something. So you can, I don't know what noise was. So you will be able to essentially block yourself from, whatever the case of it, it's a shield. So the ulama say that taqwa specifically is a means to block you from sins and block you from transgression. So the more taqwa a person has, the more they have to defend themselves against their own failings, their own sins, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, taqwa is a bit of an odd one when you translate it. Some people translate it as God-fearingness, and I guess you could say God-fearingness as in if you fear Allah, that will prevent you from sins. I guess so. That will be another way of looking at it. But essentially, the origin of taqwa is to have a barrier between you and sins that is strong enough to prevent you from sins. That is essentially what taqwa is. Now, this is attained through fasting. And Islam, again, is a practical religion. It's a religion that gives you things to do and say and whatnot that is real, has real life results, measurable. It's real. It's not just a fantasy and theoretical stuff like a lot of these isms and these ideologies and new world religions. They're a lot of them just fantasy and I believe and I think and it should be and blah blah. Islam is actually real. This is actually how it is, and if you do this actually will be the result. It's practical, and I guess this doesn't always please many people or a lot of people, but it is what it is. So back to the point. So Islam fasting is for you to attain taqwa. So whoever takes it upon himself to fast, that hopefully be the end result. But how? How does a person attain taqwa through fasting? Okay. One thing I've said to people about fasting in Ramadan, you can almost reword the whole purpose of Ramadan. You can give as a phrase you can give, or one word you can say is self-restraint. That is literally the ability to have food and water in front of you, have the ability to reach out, grab that thing, and consume it if you so wished to do so, but yet you say to yourself, no, I'm going to stop. You're going to withhold and restrain yourself from indulging in those desires. That essentially is a description, a practical description of taqwa, that which prevents you from sin. So if you are able to, practically speaking, stop yourself from your nafs, your nafs as in your soul. Your nafs has desires, it wants things, that's fair enough. And there are fundamental desires that we want. Food and drink and one's desires are definitely fundamental. They are essentially what is at the core of most of our behavior, you can say. Food and drink is at the core of most of our behavior. Walaikum assalam. We are motivated to find sustenance, food. We are motivated to seek out a mate or a partner for or whatever. So we are motivated in those manner, in such a manner. So we can see immediately that at the core of fasting is actually to say to your nafs, is actually to you can also say prioritize the aql, put the intellect over the nafs. Just like we say that those who indulge themselves in their desires over their intellect, they're like animals, or even worse, as Allah says in the Quran, بَلْ هُمْ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. So هُمْ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. They are like cattle, rather they are worse. And even Allah mentioned in the Quran, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you not seen the ones who take their desires as their gods besides Allah? So we can see here that desires are there to signal to us what our physical body wants, but our intellect is there to make the decision whether or not to do X, Y, and Z. Whether or not to feed the desire and give it what it wants, if it's the right time to do so, or to withhold and restrain ourselves until later on. That is essentially how we attain taqwa. So therefore, the way to attain taqwa through fasting is to actually fast. Now, are there those who don't have to fast? They are exempt from fasting? Yes, they are. But they're for different reasons. So maybe the first type, for example, the easiest one to deal with would be the elderly. And not just because you're old, you don't have to fast. It is someone who is old enough whereby fasting would harm them physically. They're unable to fast because if they were to do so, that fast would result in them harming themselves. Whereas if they can fast, if they can still fast, they're still going strong. 80, 90 years old, they can still fast the Ramadan. Then it's upon them to fast. Only if you are unable to fast, then you are exempt from fasting. And in that case, if that issue is perpetual, ongoing, which is generally old age is ongoing, and I've never heard of anyone reversing it, then you feed the poor for the days you don't fast. That's a given. And I guess you could say an extension of that same ethos, the same reasoning, would be the ill. They're not old, but they are ill. So what kind of fasting would be, so what kind of sickness would allow you to break your fast? It would be a sickness that increases you in difficulty and in harm, in harming your own self. So, for example, having a headache doesn't justify breaking your fast. Now, it could be the case with me. Imagine I have come across people who have, every time they fast, they have headaches, they have migraines. And I guess it gets down to a case-by-case scenario, but the general rule I'm trying to establish here is that being ill doesn't mean you can break your fast. It means being ill to the level whereby it affects your fast. So, for example, if you've got a rash, that is effectively illness, but it doesn't break your fast. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to break your fast. There's no connection between your fasting and having a rash. I'm sure you can think of many examples of someone being ill, whereby like they've got an eye infection. That doesn't break your fast. Although, truth be told, if you took eye drops because you got an eye infection, would that break your fast? So you got to fast, but you take an eye drops. Would that break your fast? Now, there is a channel in your eye that leads to the back of your throat. So at least your nose, nasal cavity, which you obviously get back from. So if you do take an eye drop and you actually taste it at the back of your throat, then effectively your fast is broken because you've ingested it. But generally speaking, everyone knows when food has reached the point of no return. Everyone knows that. So if you taste it there, then you've reached a point of no return. That's all eye drops. But it doesn't just break your fast just because you have an eye infection or take an eye drop. Medication ingested through your body, your mouth, obviously drinking or not, that breaks your fast, obviously. But creams and supplements that doesn't necessarily break your fast. So yeah, so illness, yes, as Allah says, فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخرى. Whoever amongst you is sick or on a journey, then they make up their fast another time. So again, if your fast makes it too unbearably difficult for you to fast, then you have the option of breaking your fast. Otherwise, you can keep your fast. And as I just mentioned about safar, those upon journey, safar, then they have the option also to break their fast. I think I mentioned that before. They can make it up another time. There's also another one which is very common, which is to do with pregnancy. If someone is pregnant, that doesn't necessarily break your fast. Yeah, obviously it's a case whereby if you fear for yourself or your child, then you can break your fast. Otherwise, there's no need to break your fast. Now here comes the important part, which is the mumayyiz. The mumayyiz. And I'll give you a context why I brought this up. So there's a family I know of who their children, I think 10 and 9, they have been fasting Ramadan. May Allah help them and give them much blessing. And their school came to them at the beginning of Ramadan with glasses of water and essentially forced all the children to break their fast. Now their case was, oh, kids, we're not allowing them to fast and so on and so forth. Now I can understand ignorance, if a non-Muslim is unaware of how Muslims fast, they may assume it's like how other people fast. Like for example, Christians, when they fast continuously for days. It's not just sunrise and sunset, for days. I mean, I've even seen people that 3 days, 4 days in, they haven't eaten anything for 3-4 days fasting. That's not what we do. So if they think that's what Muslims do, then educate them and so on and so forth. But they just force the children to break their fast. And then the parents already heard about it, and then the parents argued, say, how dare you do so? That's wrong, and so on and so forth. And the school backed down and allowed the kids to fast. But then the school came back a few days later and said, oh, we've consulted with a scholar of Islam, and they said kids don't have to fast, so therefore we're not going to allow it. They still don't want to. They don't want to leave it. And a lot of the parents, the majority of the parents, capitulated and said, okay, fair enough, kids don't fast. But some said, no, I don't agree with that. And they said, our kids will more fast. So the school, out of spite, said, okay, we allow those kids to fast, but they're not allowed to play in program during lunchtime or play with any other kids. And on top of that, they made the children sit down in the corner facing the wall, and they forbade them from speaking during lunchtime. So effectively what's happening here is that they're trying to penalize them and punish them for wanting to fast. So may Allah aid those children against their oppressors, because they are definitely oppressors. But the point here is that's what brought me to want to discuss this. Children and fasting. Now, when it comes to all acts of worship, children need to begin engaging in all acts of worship from the age of 7. We see from the message of Allah, he told us to order our children to pray at the age of 7 and to give them licks if they refuse at the age of 10. So this is established a precedence for acts of worship need to be begun at the age of 7. However, we also know in Islam that 7-year-olds are not accountable for any sins. If they didn't pray, there's no sins involved. So then, how do you reconcile between the two things? The ordering them to pray, yet they have no sin if they don't pray. So the ulama say that the obligation is on the parents to make them pray, and if they don't pray, then the sins are on the parents. So same thing applies with other acts of worship, like fasting and so on and so forth. That 7 years old is the time they should begin to experience the worship, and they should indulge in worship, so that when it comes time that it is an obligation, they're already ready. They already know. They've done it like since as long as they can remember. They've been fasting. I think the earliest memory I have myself is probably about 6, 7 years old. So yeah, if as long as they remember, they've always fasted Ramadan. Then when it comes time to fast, and when it comes an obligation to fast Ramadan, then they have full knowledge on how to fast, and now they fast. And this brings back to what we just started off this talk of, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may attain taqwa. And I explained that taqwa, one of the main manifestations of taqwa is self-restraint. If a child, forget an adult, if a child of 8 years old is able to stop eating and drinking from sunrise to sunset and can do so consistently, mashallah, mashallah, may Allah blessing and barakah in their lives, they have demonstrated that they can stop and say no. Not the kind of child that we say to them no, they're like, okay, but I'm gonna do it anyway. They can't control themselves. Actually, they've demonstrated that even when they're hungry, even when they're tired from praying nighttime, qiyam al-layl, and wake up early for suhoor, even after all of that, they can still maintain the fort and fast. This is the lesson that we are teaching our children, and we should teach our children. On the flip side, what kind of lesson are we teaching our children if at the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, when everyone around them is fasting, and you're telling them, no, you don't have to fast because it's difficult, it's hard, you might make yourself sick? What lesson are we teaching our children at the age that when it comes time now actually to fast, no doubt there'll be some anxieties, they will even find it difficult. And this is why you find some parents actually do find it difficult to engage their children in Islam, because they never engaged them before. When it comes time to wearing a hijab, when they're now 13, 14, they don't want a hijab. But why don't they want to wear hijab? Because they never did. You didn't tell them to do something they've never done. And what's ironic is that at the age of 7, 8, and 9, that's actually the age they want to do what you're doing. They want to emulate you and copy you in everything you do. So if they see you fasting and they want to copy you fasting, and you tell them don't, that's the message you're teaching them. If they see you praying or going to the masjid for qiyam al-layl, for tarawih, and you say to them, no, go sleep, it's late, don't come, that's the message you're teaching them. So that is actually the tarbiyah you're giving them. So when it comes time to actually do it, and you say, come, go to the masjid, then, and now at that age, when they don't even listen to you anymore, when they get teenagerhood, they don't listen to you anymore, then none of us really should be surprised to find our kids, I'm not involved in it, I'm not interested in it. Now, this is not to push blame on anyone, by the way, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there is a wisdom and there is a reason and a blessing, even a mercy from Islam that encourages us to begin teaching our kids about what it means to be Muslim and how it actually is to be Muslim from the moment they have what's called tamyiz, and that's the age of 7. Tamyiz, age of 7, is the age whereby a person is not accountable, so they can recognize right and wrong. They have enough intelligence to distinguish right and wrong. They're just not fully there yet. That comes with puberty, which is there are 5 signs of bulugh, which is puberty, where they are 100% accountable. One of them is a wet dream. The other one is for girls that have their cycle, or if they're able to get pregnant, or the age of 15, or pubic hairs growing in your private parts. These are the 5 signs that says, okay, now you're fully accountable. Now you are an adult. But we can't say, or Islam doesn't say or suggest, that they're only at that age they have common sense. No, obviously they have common sense before that. But because it's aql or intellect is not a binary thing whereby either you don't have it or you have it. It comes over time. By that time, definitely you've got it. And Islam attaches a ruling to what is visible, what is measurable, but we can't measure the aql. So therefore, we know that it begins to come into play at 7 onwards. So we start training them up from 7 onwards. So when it comes time for them to be Muslim, 100%, they're already there. So this is the lesson we need to start teaching our children from a very early age, and not be complacent or get weak, especially those in this society whereby essentially not only are we the minority in our society, we are the minority amongst the Muslimin. Even the Muslims, most Muslims will capitulate and just do whatever the kuffar tell them to do. But to be the ones who want to raise our children as good Muslims is it's difficult upon difficult. So I just want to draw that attention because it was plaguing my mind for the last couple of days. I was quite upset when I heard about what I did to those children. Out of spite, by the way, because there was no reason to do that, but that's what they did. And yeah, that's it, inshallah. So, well, I want, because it's a topic I'm assuming many might have questions. I want to open up for the last 7 minutes to any kind of questions. You might have that one. I see some already here. So, wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Let's have a look now on what questions we have available. We have loads of salams, so everyone who gave salams, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Siyam, I guess, is the plural of Saum. Yes, it is. Siyam is the plural of Saum. And Saum, even the word Saum is our lesson. Saum means to withhold. Imsak, to hold back from something. So essentially, when we're doing Siyam, we are holding back our nafs. We're just tying it in nafs and wrapping it up and saying, look, go back, get back. Get back. That's what we're doing. So very important to make a distinction during the fast, mashallah. I'm not sure what I'm referring to. Another one is, do you have to fast the whole day from the age of 7? Yes. So when it comes to fasting at the age of 7, so here it is. Fasting is very simple. The rules and regulations that apply to us or applies to the children. Nothing special. So just like you, if you actually can't fast the whole day for whatever reason, medical reason, as in you've got halfway through and you're passing out and you've got some other issues and the medical reasons, you fear for your life, for example, then you break your fast. I mean, there's you don't need any special fatwa for that. It's said in the Quran, and that applies to the children. So if a 7-year-old, you say, okay, it's time to fast, and they're fasting, and they are finding, and you can see that they are struggling, then they can break their fast. I mean, it's obvious. No one's saying make your child fast even if it harms them. That's not what we're saying. We're saying make them fast so they can see how it is, and you will actually find if they can fast or not. So what you'd have to do though, if you're realistic about fasting, you should do for yourself anyway. Like I said, you treat your child as you should treat yourself. Give them the necessary tools that aids them to complete the task. What's the most important tool for a fasting person? A suhoor. Having that breakfast is the most important thing you can give any fasting person, and especially a 7-year-old who has never fasted before. If you're gonna wake them up just for Fajr time and not even give them suhoor and expect them to fast, that's difficult for an adult, let alone for a child. So give them something nice, healthy, heavy food that can last them. Oats, banana, dates, honey, mix it up, whatever. Eggs is perfect. Like give them two eggs, some nice toast, turkey rashers, maybe some oats as well. That will last them longest while. Yeah. So you give them the tools necessary to fast. Now, is it possible that they won't fast the whole Ramadan because of difficulty? It's possible, of course. You play it by ear. That's the point. You play it by ear. They start the fast. Halfway, how you doing? I'm doing good. You got 4 hours of how you doing? I'm doing good. You play it by ear. So no one's saying you literally force them to fast. But we do find that the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, when their kids were fasting, and sometimes they were up, some even crying because they were hungry, they used to engage playing with them to try and distract them from the hunger until iftar time comes. So, like I said, it's the issue of a momentary discomfort for reward at the end. So the kids are learning from a young age. Yeah, there's times of difficulty and there's times of ease. So you're actually practically learning إِنَّمَا الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. After every hardship comes ease. Imagine that as a lesson for Ramadan to get. After this hardship, from let's say from the moment they wake up till about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Then there's ease. At the very least, that's the lesson. That's the lesson that they learn. But like I said, don't treat your child any different than you treat anyone. There's no special hukum for them. The hukum is the same for anyone else. If you can't handle the fast, then you break your fast. Just like if they can't handle the fast, then they break the fast. The only issue is you'd only know that if you tried to fast. Brother and sisters, well, it's not about the age, it's about puberty. Not sure what that's about, what I was referring to. But yeah, so that's basically the issue. And this also applies for breastfeeding and for being pregnant. Again, the only reason why you should be breaking your fast if you're pregnant or breastfeeding is if you generally fear for your child or yourself, medically, and you'd only know that if you fasted. And you only be able to realistically know that if you made the necessary preparation. So that means drinking enough fluids, having a good enough breakfast, and then you might start your fast. If you wake up after suhoor, no suhoor, then don't blame the fast for being difficult. You made it difficult on yourself by not preparing yourself for it. So we need to try our best to manifest what Allah said in the Quran when He said, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Hopefully, maybe you will attain taqwa. There's not really many questions that anyone mentioned here, so I guess we would call it wali for today, and we do that inshallah. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.